ideally. Okay, we're starting the bell work. Number one, the rules we learned yesterday for 45, 45, 90 triangles should stand clear today. Remember that if this is our hypotenuse, our equation would have been x times the square root of 2 equals 5. Square root of 2, we basically divide both sides by the square root of 2. These cancel, x equals 5. It's really pretty easy to get that answer. You could probably just look at it and be like, well, that's got to be 5, and that's 5. Okay? Remember, these two sides are the same, so if this is 144, this is also 144. What does x turn out to be? Yeah, 144 square root of 2. You can basically look at it and get that answer. It's really nice. It's really pretty easy. Number 3 is a little bit more difficult, okay? Because you'd have to say that x times the square root of 2 has to equal 32. When you divide both sides by the square root of 2, it's kind of a mess right there, that x would equal this. And I really kind of want to show you the proper way of doing this. At some point I will. I'm not sure when I'm going to do that, but I'll do it before your test. Show you the proper way of writing these, because this is not the proper way of writing it. The correct answer is actually 16 times the square root of 2. It's kind of a mess, but I'll show that to you at some point. Okay? But I'll show you that to you at a later date. This for right now, this is going to be the correct answer for us. Okay? All right. So today we're talking about 30, 60, 90 triangles, which are very, very popular triangles. This is another special right triangle, is a 30, 60, 90 triangle. It has that name because the measures of the interior angles are 30 degrees, 60 degrees, and 90 degrees. Duh. Okay, so that's why it's a 30, 60, 90 triangle. There are 4 formulas that I want you to have memorized. 4 formulas that I need you to have memorized, besides the 1 or 2 of them from yesterday. Okay, so I want you to make sure that you guys have these memorized. And it kind of depends on what information you're given as to what you do next. Okay, so if you want maybe kind of draw like a line here and maybe like a line like this, because there's kind of 3 different scenarios. Okay, if you have the short leg, you're set. The short leg is really easy. Everything based on the short leg is really nice. Remember that this is the shortest side, this is the long leg, and this is going to be the hypotenuse right here. So we have the short leg. Maybe we should write these down. I guess I haven't talked about these. There's the long leg, and then there's the hypotenuse. Okay, short leg, long leg, and hypotenuse. The short leg is always the one across from the 30 degrees. The long leg is always the one across from the 60. And as always, 90 degrees is across from the hypotenuse. Okay, you always have to identify this. Usually the first thing that I do is whenever I see one of these triangles, identify, hey, is that the long leg, the short leg, or the hypotenuse? Okay, long leg, short leg, or hypotenuse. I identify the information. From that, if you're given the short leg, see how there's 2 of these boxes that are, if you have the short leg, it's really easy to figure things out based on this. So if we look at this, if we know this is x, okay, all of a sudden we know the hypotenuse is twice that. Okay, so if we have the short leg, we'll just say this is 2s. Okay, 2 times the short leg. Hypotenuse is really easy to find that way. And the long leg is pretty easy to find. It's just s times the square root of 3. Yesterday we were working with the square root of 2, and there were only basically 2 side lengths, right? There was the leg and then there was the hypotenuse. There were basically just 2 yesterday. Today's there's 3. So that's why this is, well, that's one way to remember this is going to be a square root of 3. So if you're dealing with a 30, 60, 90 triangle, it's going to deal with the square root of 3. If we're dealing with a 45, 45, 90, because 2 of those are the same, it's the square root of 2. Okay? It's a little bit more complicated if you have the hypotenuse. If you have this, basically you just need to divide this by 2. So this would be h divided by 2. If you're given the hypotenuse, you just divide by 2. That's pretty easy. The short leg is a little bit more complicated to find the long leg. It's actually L, and it's technically divided by the square root of 3, but I want to tell you kind of how this really works. It's really, because it's not the proper way of writing it, it's L times the square root of 3 divided by 3, and I'm going to show you this soon. We're going to use this part of the formula today, okay? So that's going to be what we're going to find, okay? In the past, we've talked about this, but I'm going to cross that out because that's really not proper notation to leave a radical or a square root on the bottom like that. It's just not proper notation, so we're not going to do that, okay? So these four formulas, very, very important that you have them. You do need to memorize them for your test, which is coming up. You'll have a test before the end of the semester. Obviously, it will not be our final. But it will be on our final, but it's not our final. Okay? So here's the deal. Let's get started on this really quickly. This is 60 degrees. This has to be 30 degrees. This is 90 degrees. Okay? Across from the 30 degrees, this has to be the short leg. This is the long leg. And this is our hypotenuse. I think it's always a good idea to label your sides so you know which one's which. Short leg, long leg, hypotenuse. It's important for you not just to randomly throw things up there, but to realize the short's always across from 30, the long is always across from 60, hypotenuse is always across from the 90. Okay? Yes. So the short leg equals 5. We already know that. That means that our hypotenuse is always just 2 times s, or 2 times 5. Sorry, my 5's and s's look very similar. So that would be now 10. So I'll just write this. Our hypotenuse equals, yes, this says 2 times s, that says 2 times 5. That says 2 times 5. Oh, that says 2 times s, this says 2 times 5. So I'm substituting in. Lastly, the long leg equals, it's going to always be our short leg times the square root of 3. So that's going to be 5 times the square root of 3 is our long leg. Okay, so hypotenuse is 10, and the long leg is 5 times the square root of 3. Number 2, the very first thing we identify is the 3 sides. So across from the 90 degrees is going to be our hypotenuse. Across from the 60 degrees is our long leg. And across from this 30 degrees down here is going to be our short leg. Does that make sense to always label these things first? Okay. Which one of these are we given? Hypotenuse. According to your chart up above, we're given the hypotenuse. What do we find first? Short leg, okay? So the hypotenuse is always equal, I'm sorry, the short leg, no, we know the hypotenuse is 20. The short leg equals our hypotenuse. Wow, this is really not writing correctly. The short leg equals the hypotenuse divided by 2, correct? Okay, so that means that's going to equal 20 divided by 2, or the short leg equals 10. Okay? Now that we have the short leg, what else do we need to find? Long leg. If we have the short leg, how do you find the long leg? S times the square root of 3. So that's just going to be L equals 10 times the square root of 3. Okay? So you always do these in a particular order. If you have the short leg, you're set. It's really easy. If you're given one of the other two, it takes a little bit of work to get the others. Okay? Next one. We're going to label all these angles. If this is 60, this has, or 30, this has to be 60. What side is across from 60? The long leg. Which one's across from 30? Short leg. Which is across from 90? Hypotenuse. Okay. Which one of these are we given? The long leg. So we know our long leg equals 17 times the square root of 3. If we're given the long leg, what are we supposed to find? We're supposed to find the short leg. Short always equals the long times the square root of 3 divided by 3. It's going to be a little complicated to do, but we can handle it. So that equals 17 times the square root of 3, because that's what our long leg is, times the square root of 3 divided by 3. I'm going to pause there for just a second for people to make sure they can write this down. By the way, who has calculator number 9? It says on the back. Who's number 10? Nobody? Huh. They were here at the beginning of third hour yesterday. At the end of third hour, they were missing. Interesting. Okay, what is the square root of 3 times the square root of 3? 3. So this turns into basically 3, or 17 times 3 divided by 3. When you multiply something by 3 and divide by 3, so just the short leg just equals 17. Okay, so let me just go over that again. 17 times the square root of 3 times the square root of 3. Square root of 3 times square root of 3 is just 3. 3 divided by 3 goes away. It cancels. It's 1. So we just have 17. What does our hypotenuse turn out to be then? Remember, it's 2 times s, so that's going to equal 34. Is that okay? It's a lot easier, by the way, than doing the Pythagorean theorem. I don't know if you realize that or not, but it's a lot easier to do it this way. Okay. Number 4. This is a 60-degree angle. What's across from 60 degrees? What side is across from 60 degrees? The long side. What's across from the 30? The short. What's across from the 90? The hypotenuse. Excellent. Okay. What side are we given? The short. So short equals 9. Excellent. What do we find next? Hypotenuse always equals twice this. So the hypotenuse equals 18. And the long is just equal to 2 times the square root of 3, isn't it? Piece of cake. Can I stop showing my work now? It's just, the formula is just the short times the square root of 3. What's our short leg? Oh, 9. I used the wrong number. 9 times the square root of 3. It's all based on the short leg. Number 5. I want you guys to try this one on your own. Try number 5 on your own. Identify the missing angle. Identify each of the sides. Try number 5 on your own. Don't look at me. Try it on your own. Oh, you probably want your homework then. Whew. Hopefully you solved them in these orders. If you have the long leg of 3 square root of 3, the short leg is always found by multiplying by the square root of 3 and then dividing by 3. So that equals this. And then you can find the hypotenuse to equal 6. Any questions on that? Yeah, you were doing it on your own, and so I just tossed up. Number 6, 60 degrees. Across from 60 degrees is the long leg. This is the short leg. This is the hypotenuse up here. We're given the hypotenuse. Hypotenuse equals 12 times the square root of 3. Okay, from the hypotenuse, what do we always find first? Short leg. And we basically just divide it by 2. So that's 12 square root of 3 divided by 2. Can I simplify that anyway? What's 12 divided by 2? 6. This is 6 square root of 3. This is the short leg. What's the formula on the front? Divide by 2, right? Okay. Yep. And then the long leg, we always take whatever the short leg is, 6 square root of 3, whatever the short leg is, and we multiply it by what? What do we multiply by? Look at the formula on the front if you don't know. The short leg times what? Square root of 3. Okay? So it's always the short leg times the square root of 3. I'm just using the formula. the short leg times the square root of 3. So what's square root of 3 times the square root of 3? 3. So we basically have 6 times 3. What's 6 times 3? 18. I'll take my time on the next one, then write out the formulas. It seems like people are going to need those. Okay. Number 8. Very first step, everyone identify the missing angle. What's the missing angle? That was not everybody. What's the missing angle? 60 degrees. Label it. Secondly, label all the sides, either long, short, or hypotenuse. Okay, hopefully yours looks like that. What side do they give us? The short. So short equals 7. Okay. Now, according to our formulas, a hypotenuse always equals 2 times s. Okay, so that's going to be 2 times 7. What's 2 times 7? 14. So our hypotenuse is 14. Okay. Our long, according to the formulas, is always the short side times the square root of 3. What's the short side again? So this is just going to be 7 times the square root of 3. Is that okay? I'll write out the formulas, I guess. That seems to help people. Number 8. How many are there on here? 12? Holy smokes. What's the missing angle? 60 degrees. Everyone label the sides. They're kind of the same as the last ones. Which side are we given? Long. So long equals 6 times the square root of 3. If we're given the long side, Sierra, is that right? Okay. If we're given the long side, according to the formulas, what do we find? Short. Okay. Short equals the long side times the square root of 3 divided by 3. Is that correct? Okay. So I'm just going to substitute in for my L. And whenever you substitute, I always put things in parentheses like this. Times the square root of 3 divided by 3. What's the square root of 3 times the square root of 3? 3. So in essence, I have 6 times 3 divided by 3. If I multiply by 3 and divide by 3, you basically cancel it. So I basically have my short side equaling 6. What's that? Okay, if I have my short side, what do I still need to find now? Hypotenuse. My hypotenuse always equals twice whatever the short side is. So 2 times 6. What's 2 times 6? 12. Sierra, number 9. Are there any missing angles? No. What side is across from 30 degrees? The short side. What side's across from 90? Hypotenuse. What's across from 60? Long. Okay. What side did they give us? The short. Okay, so short equals 2. How do I find my hypotenuse? What's my formula for the hypotenuse? 2 times s. So that's going to be 2 times 2, correct? So my hypotenuse equals 4. Okay. How do I find the long side? What's the formula? Times the square root of 3. You can't see it. It's on your paper. You just... Oh, you don't know how to say it. I thought you said you couldn't see it. So that would be what? Times the square root of 3. So that's our long side. Katie, which one of these do you want to do? Which one? 10, 11, or 12? Which one do you want to do? 11 or 12? 11? Okay. Rashad, which one do you want to do? 12? Excellent. Katie, number 10. Any missing sides? Nope. What side is X? Short. What side is Y? What side is 6? Okay, so if I'm given the hypotenuse equals 6, what do I find next? Okay, what's my formula for the short side based on the hypotenuse? It's h divided by 2. Okay, so what's h? Okay, divided by 2. What's 6 divided by 2? 3. So our short side is 3. What do we still need to find? Long. What's the formula for long based on short? Times the square root of 3. Yeah, I hope you can figure out how to say that. That'd be really helpful. So what's s? So we have 3 times what? Thank you. Okay. Number 11. Are there any missing angles, Nicole? No? Okay. So identify the sides for us. What's the square root of 3? What side is that? Long one. Sounds good to me. What's the x? Short side. What's the hypotenuse? That one's right there. Are you guys varsity football players? Here's your assignments. Okay, keep going. There's just 2 of you, right? Sounds really good to me. Okay, so the short side equals what? The long side times 3 divided by 3, right? Okay, so our long side is the square root of 3. That's times the square root of 3, all divided by 3, right? That's a lot of 3s. This is probably where people get lost sometimes. So just make sure this makes sense. The long side is the square root of 3, so I'm just going to put the square root of 3 wherever I see L. Square root of 3 times square root of 3 is on top. 3 is on the bottom. What's square root of 3 times the square root of 3? 3. So I have 3 divided by 3. 1. Okay, so our short side, let me just write this. Short side equals 1. What do I still need to find? Hypotenuse. What's the formula for hypotenuse based on the short side? Yeah, so 2 times 1, which equals 2. Okay, so our hypotenuse is 2, our short side is 1, and the long side is the square root of 3. That's good. Rashad just left. Silas, number 12. 60 is the missing degree. What do I do next? Okay. Okay. Which one do they give us? Hypotenuse equals 10. What do I find next? Five. Okay. Yeah, it's always that times the square root of 3, so that's 5 times the square root of 3 is my long leg. Okay. A lot of people find this hard. The reason they find it hard is because they don't know what formula to use. Okay. So I give you the formulas. Are they on the front page? Okay. If you have a certain thing, you find those certain pieces, and you just do them in a very specific order. So this part matters. Could you imagine taking a test and not knowing these? Trying to do this entire assignment without knowing these? It's very difficult, okay? That means you need to have these memorized. My suggestion is do what we did during these problems and write out the formula when you're doing it. Think in your head, okay, I'm given the short side, I need to find the hypotenuse. Okay, that's short side times 2 is the hypotenuse. So if you write them out every time that you're doing them, as long as you're writing out correctly, you're probably going to have them memorized a lot easier than not. If you do have questions on these, I would love to help you. I do need to talk to a few people about tests and quizzes and assignments that they've missed.